Hello everyone. If you're watching this, you missed day 2 of week 7, and this is your recap. There was a lot covered today, so this was a really bad day to miss. So hopefully you can review all the materials and email me if you have questions, because once again, there was a lot that you missed. Today we talked about DNS, HTTP, URL, but we also talked about HTML, SSL, TLS. It was alphabet soup up in here. So you need to know what all of these acronyms are related to. Hopefully you know what the important ones stand for, but at the very least, you should be able to place each one in terms of where it goes in our internet model. There is an assignment, 020601, HTTP and abstraction on the internet. That's due Sunday, the 18th. It's a very straightforward one, shouldn't be too hard for you. And there's a journal 2, which is due the 25th. It's going to be the same document that your journal 1 was in, and you just need to add to it with the new terms that are listed in the assignment details. All right, let's get to it. The deadline to register for the AP exam is November 6th. So if you're thinking of taking the AP exam, please make sure that you're registered on our AP Classroom and that you've indicated your desire to take the exam. If you have any questions about how to do that, or you need some assistance, please send me an email. All right, let's get into it. So we started with a little internet puzzle called Not Prawn. I highly recommend it. It's very interesting. Lots of fun to be had there, but I'm not going to belabor that right now. So the first thing we started with is this idea of a DNS. DNS stands for Domain Name Service, and its function is to allow us to share our IP addresses without everyone having to memorize everyone else's. There's a dedicated computer out there. In fact, there are dedicated hundreds of computers whose only job it is to keep track of people's IP addresses and send them to anyone who asks. So if I type in google.com, that URL is then transferred to a DNS server, and that server looks up the IP address associated with that URL and sends it back. And that is how we're able to look up various IP addresses on the internet. This video goes into a lot more detail. I highly recommend you review that on your own. I won't play it during this video. That would just be crazy. But to answer these two questions here, how does it solve the problem of translating domain names? Just address that. We have a computer whose only job is to store this addressing information. And it's scalable because it is a distributed network. So much like the internet itself, there are many DNS servers, and each one keeps track of some information but not everything. And if we needed to expand this service, we just can go ahead and add any number of machines, and we can make it larger. Following this, we took a look at a new internet simulator. This internet simulator is complete. It has everything you could ask for and simulates all the metadata that we've talked about so far. So there is the internet protocol doing the addressing. There's a version of TCP, which allows us to break our message up into various packets and then make sure they're reassembled correctly on the other end. And now there's a DNS involved. There is a server attached to each router that you can send a GET request to and find out the IP address of anyone else on that router. Please check this out on your own and play around with it and make sure you understand how it works and what the metadata is. Next, we talked about HTTP. HTTP is the method through which we actually retrieve information such as a web page. It stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. The problem it's solving is that we need a standardized way for computers to ask each other for information and for that information to be sent back to us. So this is essentially the protocol that determines what format those requests and those responses take. To answer the rest of these questions, let's take a look at the assignment that you guys need to complete by Sunday at midnight. So underneath week 7, you will find the assignment posted right here. It is titled 020601. let's take a look at what it looks like. So looking at the assignment itself, the top half is all notes. These are probably notes you should have a good understanding of. So up here, I explained HTTP to you. HTTP essentially is very, very straightforward. It's plain text. Your computer, your browser, sends out a GET request. It's literally the word GET, then whatever the domain is that you're trying to get the information from, the version of HTTP that you're looking for, and then various headers or supporting information that might be helpful. The response is going to look something like this, where you have the version of HTTP, a code that lets you know how it all went. Was it good? Was it not good? And then whatever information is actually returned. So the codes you've actually seen before in your real everyday life, probably. Like a 404 code would mean that whatever you asked for wasn't found. It means you probably messed up somewhere. Or a 500 error, which would be if the person hosting the information messed up in some way. 200 codes you get all the time, but you never see. 200 means everything went smoothly. So anytime you see a web page, you actually did get a 200 code. It just wasn't shown to you because there would be no point. Similarly, you can have a post request. A post request is sort of the opposite of a GET. That's when you want to send information to the web page, such as when you're logging in or typing in a search query. All of this is explained in a lot more detail in the following video posted on my PowerPoint slide, so please make sure to check that out. Now, the crux of this lesson is understanding this whole structure in terms of abstraction. So everything is based on the least abstract bottom part, the physical internet. As we go up the layers, the internet becomes more and more abstract. There are layers of abstraction, and things on top are more abstract than things below them. What does that mean? It means that everything up here does not have to worry about how the things below it do their jobs. All it needs to know is that those jobs are being done effectively. So for instance, TCP does not care how IP gets the addressing done. That's why we can switch from IPv4 to IPv6 without really making any changes to TCP. So long as that gets done, TCP can do its job. Similarly, DNS does not care how TCP functions, so long as it gives us the desired output. So that is the idea of abstraction that you guys need to take away from this lesson. This is the tree you need to have memorized. The physical internet is followed by the internet protocol that relies on it, followed by TCP that relies on both of the things below them, and then HTTP and DNS both occupy the same layer up here and rely on everything below them. Now, along with HTTP, there are a couple of more interesting things to note. For instance, there's something called HTTPS. HTTPS is a more secure version of HTTP that uses one of two supporting protocols to ensure that your information is kept private during your transaction. You know that it is engaged because you'll see a little lock up here in the top, and you'll see HTTPS instead of just HTTP. And what this does is it engages either SSL, which is an older protocol that's not used as much, or more likely, it engages TLS, Transport Layer Security. So with this protocol, your connection is kept more private. A hacker is not able to get into your data stream and insert themselves between you and the person you're talking to and pretend to be either party, and everything you send is kept private. So this is important to know because if you are, let's say, communicating with a bank, you want to make sure that you are in fact using HTTPS. Also, there is something called a security certificate, which each website that uses HTTPS has. And sometimes you might get a warning saying the security certificate is expired. If you get that, then you probably shouldn't go to that website because it means that you cannot be sure that they are who they claim they are. Again, all of this is recapped in this video right here, so I highly recommend you please go and check that out. All right, moving forward, we are going to be talking a little bit more about URL next week and a little bit more about the codes. You do need to know this model right here, and there is a Kahoot at the end that kind of recaps most of the things we've talked about, so I highly recommend you check that out on your own and play around with it and see how many questions you can get. All right, that wraps it up for us today. I hope to see you guys next week. Have a great rest of your day.